I move that the question be now put.
I'll hear from David Shearer.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I was pausing because I hoped the Minister might be able to stand and give us the explanation that my colleague Phil Goff was actually asking for, and I think those were legitimate questions. And if you ask a legitimate question in the House, particularly the committee stage, I think the Minister, who's taken the chair late, has a responsibility to answer those. Sir, this is a bill that we are supporting for the reasons that Phil Goff just outlined. We are a trading nation. We do rely on overseas trade. We have freed up our trade significantly in the last few years. We have very little in the way of tariffs restricting the flow of goods coming into New Zealand at the moment. I think the last are around about the 5% mark. And we have a number of the FTAs that have been developed principally by under a Labor government, but also, of course, continued on by this government as well with, for example, Taiwan. As Phil Goff just mentioned, we have, with the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, just completed a visit to China, which was, I think, interesting on a number of levels in terms of the trade relationship we have with China. It did highlight a couple of points that I think that I would like to mention in relation to the Trade Safeguards Bill, though, however, is our huge dependence and growing dependence on China, and it likens that sort of dependence back to the 1960s and our dependence with the UK. And it also the huge dependence in the area of primary products, and particularly milk powder. 44% of our milk powder now goes to China, Taiwan or Hong Kong. Very, very dependent on that, and places us in a situation where there is considerable risk should that market not perform, but also dominates vis-a-vis other industries. And it's these other industries, sir, that I think the trade safeguards legislation is really aimed at. Because let's face it, it's unlikely that, for example, China or another country is going to flood our country with milk powder. It will, however, or could, however, be able to flood some of our manufacturing markets with some of the goods that could easily swamp and put out of business some of our manufacturing industries. That's unlikely to happen, but it could happen. And this legislation, sir, is designed to help prevent that from going on. It does put in place some temporary restrictions around the ability for that to happen, for overseas countries to flood our market with goods that are well undervalued, and in order to be able to suppress and eliminate some of our own markets. It enables and gives quite an amount of authority to not only the Minister but also the CEO of Mobi to be able to mobilise measures from what used to be 35 days protection, now up to 75 days, and up, if in exceptional circumstances, up to 85 days to protect that. It gives that Minister the ability to do that. Normally that could be in the form of a duty, but there is a degree of flexibility around that as well. And as we have heard, it replaces what's in place at the moment that has been there since 1987. In 1987 we had the Temporary Safeguard Authorities Act, and that was regulating this part of our export market or our local market. That is now will be replaced, and instead of the safeguard authorities being in place, we will now have the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment, Mobi, which will be able to do that job for us just as effectively. But I want to come back, sir, to the two key questions that Phil Goff asked of the Minister, and I would call on the Minister before Jamie Ross jumps up to take yet another vote, that he actually gets around to answering this. And the first question, Mr. Chair,
David Shearer.
the first question that is why is it that this bill first came up in 2008 has taken more than 6 years before it is now in committee stage? And we don't even know, sir, whether in fact this bill will get through before there's a change in government. I can tell you one thing, that when there is a change in government, we will be able to push this through and get it done, something we started in 2008 and we can finish off in 2014. Sir, this bill was first introduced by Leanne Dalzell. It was then taken up by Simon Power. Simon Power used the same notes, the same speech notes as Leanne Dalzell was speaking from when she came to go. That was how many years ago now? 3. It then went to John Banks. The baton was passed to him. Well, John Banks didn't last for that long, for all of the reasons that we know, and all the reasons that he may not last very much longer as we speak. The clock is ticking around John Banks, and now it has been passed through to Craig Foss, and I think it's a legitimate question to ask of why it has taken so long, why it has been put on the back burner of back burners in order to be able to be considered today. The second question that Phil Goff raised, and I would like the Minister to answer, is that yes, this bill is important in terms of protecting our local industries in a world, and certainly in New Zealand's terms, where we have opened our borders substantively from dumping. But I would like to know what examples the Minister can give of what industries do need temporary protection, and what countries does he envisage us looking at in terms of being the greatest source of threat to New Zealand. Because I think actually we need to have a little reality in here. At the moment, people are probably watching this and saying, well, yeah, I can kind of get my head around the idea that we need to protect our local industries, but they want to know from who and what sort of industries do need protection. Why do we need this legislation as it is drawn up right now? So there are the two questions, sir. Two questions. One, why has it taken 6 years for this legislation that we're supporting? We don't have a problem with the legislation as such, but we do have a problem about the delays it's taken for this legislation to come through. Why has it taken so long from Leanne Dalzell in 2008? Leanne's gone now. Simon Power, that she passed it to, is gone. John Banks, well, he's gone burger as well. I mean, it's gone burger all the way down the line, sir, and it'll be gone burger for this government. And Craig Foss doesn't have very much time before he can get this legislation through this parliament before he's gone burger as well. All of a long line of skittles being knocked over by this trade bill, sir, that has been lingering on our books for the last 6 years. And the second question, as I asked, is why do we need it? What industries do we need protection? And, sir, lastly, from who? Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Call Andrew Williams.
Mr. Chair.
I take a call on behalf of New Zealand First in the Trade Safe